Hi, today I'm going to do some of my top tips for anti-aging makeup. Now we all know that makeup can be our best friend, but it can also be a worst enemy. I see lots of girls in makeup and then I see them, girls that I work with or whatever, and you see them without makeup and I often think, God, you look about 10 years younger now that your makeup's off. And also more mature ladies that just aren't making the most of themselves. It's more to do with the textures they're choosing and the products. So makeup can be your best friend and it can make you look so much younger if you're choosing the right textures and you're using the right sort of techniques. So I'm just going to go over a few of my kind of top tips. The first one is for foundation. You cannot paint over the cracks with foundation. It's not a case of you've got some wrinkles and some fine lines and the more foundation you put on, you know, the more they're going to fill in. It just doesn't work like that. It's actually more less is more as you're getting older in terms of texture. And I think, in my point of view anyway, is that uneven skin tone and pigmentation and patchiness and blotchiness is a lot more aging than lines and wrinkles. I think if your skin tone's quite even and you have a brightness to your skin, that is always going to sort of shine through and give you a much more youthful demeanour than wrinkles are going to age you. I think skin tone is just really, for me, the most important thing. So as you're getting older, obviously skin becomes more sallow and you do have pigmentation. You've got a build-up of sort of sun damage over the years. So you're starting to get a little bit patchier, a little bit more pigmentation, a little bit sort of uneven. So the main thing you want to do with foundation is just to even out that skin tone and to give a sort of brightness to the skin, to kind of beautify it. Now, you should be looking for foundations which, as I say, aren't going to fill in cracks. They're not going to cover wrinkles. They're going to soften them, but then it's not the idea that you're getting as much on as possible. So something like Healthy Mix Foundation by Borjois is a good one, or Lift and Luminate by No. 7, and that they're very sort of smoothing and very thin. And when you apply them to the skin, you definitely feel that you have the evening out, but they're not sort of covering absolutely everything. Your skin looks still very, very natural, and also there is that element of adding a little bit of luminosity. If you need a little bit more coverage, then something like, I've just used Makeup Forever HD, which is, again, you're looking for that fineness of texture, something that is imperceivable on the skin. You don't want it to be sitting in the lines or, you know, very much so you can see it. And if you've got very dry skin that's also uneven, something like a Vitalumiere from Chanel is good, because again, you can put it on quite thinly. It's going to even you out. It also is going to give you a little bit of illumination, which is useful because as you get older, if you think of the skin is a bit like if you've got a patent leather handbag, which is very smooth, you know, so the way the light is reflected off that, compared to, say, a crocodile skin handbag or a pair of shoes, which when light hits it, you don't get that reflection. It just sort of is absorbed into the fabric. That's the sort of difference. As you're getting older, you haven't got those very tight contours that and flat sort of skin cells where the light's just bouncing off it. So you're trying to get a little bit of that luminosity back. And likewise, if you're young, you don't want to kill that luminosity by sort of putting on too much anyway, because while you've got it, you may as well show it off. So keeping the luminosity, evening out the skin tone without too much heavy coverage. And then concealer is a must. Now, you might need more than, light reflective concealers are probably the best, depending on how dark you are under the eyes, or, you know, around here and all the different areas you can start to get quite shadowy. So something like a light reflective pen is very good. If you find it's not quite enough anymore, you've just got, you know, you're quite dark under the skin, you can either sort of mix something like a light reflective pen, whichever one you've got, they're all pretty similar, with a kind of opaque concealer like that and mix them together. Or you can use something like by Terry, I've got a very good one. I like this one because it's highlighting concealer brush, and it's almost like a mixture between a full coverage concealer mixed with a light reflective concealer with a brush, so you're kind of getting the real smoothing out. At the same time, you're getting full coverage and you're getting illumination, so it feels very sheer although the coverage level is high. But you can achieve something like that, it's quite expensive, by mixing, as I say, a regular light reflective pen with a more opaque concealer and just mixing them together. It gives you that sort of effect. So definitely using a nice light concealer. I wouldn't use anything that's really heavy just on its own, like say Secret Camoflage, because you're dark, just to sort of pile that on around the eyes. You know, it will start to stick in any fine lines. It just looks heavy. Even if you're young, it's so aging. So something that is a lighter texture and that feels that it's almost, you put it on, it bounces light, but you can still see the skin texture. And, you know, when you're smiling, it's not sort of creasing, or, you know, it's wearing really well. And use a brush, and, you know, I think you have to be quite clever about your makeup as you're getting a bit older. You have to sort of invest in slightly better tools and use a better technique, just because you kind of need it. You know, when you're young, you can sort of get away with anything really, you know, because you've got those you've got that fabulous tight skin. Now on to powder. If you've got oily skin, I mean, you can have oily skin at any age, you're still going to need to powder. If your skin's pretty dry, you might get away completely without powder, especially if you've used a good foundation that doesn't dry very, sort of leave you really greasy. But if you do need powder, I would use something very light and soft and smooth. I wouldn't use, this is actually a Revlon one, which is really nice and light in texture. What I wouldn't use are these powder puffs, and I wouldn't kind of do this, you know, pat it all on, because it's way too heavy. So as you're getting older, I think you're much better always using a brush and just flicking most of it off. The other textures that are really good are HD powders, so the silica powders, which just disappear. They're not going to leave any build up on the skin. Or if you're not going to be photographed and you're just sort of wearing it during the day, something with a little bit of shimmer in is nice. I like this Giorgio Armani Micro-fil powder, which sort of almost fills in fine lines and wrinkles as well, and gives that illusion of sort of illuminosity. And that's quite a nice one if you want to sort of use it in areas where you have got some fine lines, maybe just, you know, around the sides of your eyes, or if you need a little bit of powder underneath your eyes, then that one's quite a good one. So the next thing is blusher. Blusher really is amazing for making you look younger. It's one of the most effective things you can do. It's so quick, it's so easy, and it's just about bringing the blood, looking like you've got blood coming to the surface of your skin. Because as you get older, you can lose that that flush you can get. You have a sort of slightly more sallow skin. You can start to look a little bit tired, and blusher will counteract all of that. Cream blushes, I think, are really great, particularly if your skin's starting to sort of get a little bit drier, just because, you know, they can give you that warmth. They look so natural once they're, you know, they're all rubbed in. They're not sitting on top of the skin, so it definitely looks as if the blush is sort of emulating from within the skin, which is such a lovely effect. There are tons of great ones around. Today I've used this one by Mercier, which looks really bright, and in fact you kind of need something that has a lot of brightness, even though you're only using a small amount, because you want that life and that vitality. If your skin's incredibly red already, use your foundation and just either let some of your natural redness come through here and just conceal where you don't want it to be, or so you don't end up looking too washed out, you can go over afterwards with a little bit of powder blush. But definitely some life in the skin is essential.